know what? That's the internalized fat phobia in me talking, because as soon as we start talking about mortality, I'm reminded of my own jiggling circumference. And
you're reminded of all of the pressure that your weight puts on your heart that will one day make it explode.
Yes, my doctor literally wants me to go on Ozempic.
Yeah,
I'm stressed.
Yeah, that was a fun text to receive when you were like, I'm having a moral quandary about whether I go on Ozempic or not.
It's just like, it's very stressful when you're sitting in a room with a doctor and he's like, and also it's the first time I'm seeing him. He's not ever taken my blood work before. And he's just like, your cholesterol's high. I'm going to recommend Ozempic for you. And I was like, oh, I think I'm just going to try to like eat a little bit differently for a couple months.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know. I don't want to trigger your eating disorder. I just think Ozempic is the way.
I just think it's specific that one of us got, when we had high cholesterol, because we both had high cholesterol, one of us got recommended to go on Ozempic, and one of us didn't.
Well, and we know that Mackenna has her physique because she's on Ozempic.
No! Don't tell people that! That's not true! I'm so scared of needles, I can never inject something into myself.
It's my goal on this podcast to just, whenever there's misinformation about Mackenna that gets posted on the internet, I want the source to just come back to me.
There's too much documentation of most of my body on the internet for it to be believable that I went on Ozempic. For anything other than, like, I have diabetes, which I don't, so.
Well, we shall see.
Yes.
All right, well, speaking of diabetes, let's talk about fat suits.
That's awesome. I love that. Hey, I love that.
I am allowed to make these jokes as somebody who is fat, identifies as fat, and loves fat bodies. Welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by one pocket full of liquid and one padded suit. This is our series on fat suits. The question that prompted this series was basically, how did fat suits become a thing? Why does the media use them? Why are they always used in ways to indicate that someone is not attractive? Like I said in the Funny Fat Man episode, the answer to this question is inevitably going to boil down to anti-fat bias. But what I was interested in with this series was really tracking the history of the fat suit, which is much more recent than I think many people probably realize. So part one, I'm going to be talking about the history of the fat suit, probably through like the 90s to mid 2000s. Episode 2, we're going to take a step back and do a more narrow perspective, specifically on the character of Fat Albert, who I find very compelling. And then part 3 is going to be going from the mid-2000s to now. What have fat suits become? What do they look like? And what is the future of them moving forward?
Yup.
So I think before I get into the history, I want to talk a little bit about why are fat suits bad? Like, why do fat people tend to feel very negatively about media that uses fat
Aubrey,
suits?
I got a question. Why are fat suits bad? Why do fat people tend to feel negatively about the use of fat suits in media?
Excellent question. So
it was two questions, but whatever.
Well, excellent questions. So, oftentimes, fat suits are played for laughs. I do think in modern trends, they've been progressively getting used more and more for serious or dramatic roles. And problematically, they turn fat bodies into costumes rather than lived realities. And they also frequently reinforce stereotypes about fat people. You know, showing fat people as being lazy, sad, gluttonous, unlovable, unattractive. An actor does not put on a fat suit to portray a character in a positive light virtually ever. I have no examples where a character wears a fat suit and that is a positive portrayal of someone.
And I'll remind everyone listening to this podcast that of the two podcast hosts that you're listening to, one of us is married and one of us isn't. So the lived reality is that it's easier for fat people to find love, and that's what we get from this sample size of 2.
Exactly. 50%. You know, I just want to reiterate, it's really harmful to see an image of a person who looks like you be propped up as undesirable, especially if people express discomfort about, like, being in the fat suit. There are so many examples of individuals who wear fat suits for roles, like actresses specifically, and their reaction is like, when I put on the fat suit, everyone treated me like I was a big, disgusting, horrible monster, and it was so different from how people always treat me kindly because I'm beautiful. And it just emphasizes this point that, like, when a fat person's body is a costume, the thin actor is able to take that off. I can't take off my body. This is just the life that I live. Oh, not yet. I'm not exactly sure where to fit this in, but I have also been having these like harrowing experiences at work. I work on a project with children, and lately I have heard so many children and parents talk about their child having terrible body image issues, not as a result of, but in conjunction with their peers, siblings, or relatives singing the Big Back song from TikTok at them.
I don't know that song.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Because I have it linked right here.
Oh, thank God.
It's a popular sound. Yeah.
I not being on TikTok anymore really means I'm not in it with the pop culture. I was informed there's a song about Blastoid.
I don't know that.
Okay, well, my two male friends, Norman and Alex, who love Instagram Reels, kept singing a little ditty about Blastoid when we were hanging out, and I was like, my brothers in Christ, I'm not on the internet.
And I think it's like a minute long. You'll get the gist of it after like 15 seconds. Mackenna looks horrified.
What the fuck is that? I hate that.
So describe to me the lyrics of the Big Back song.
The portion that I listened to was like, my big back is filled with so much food, squeeze my body into a tiny shirt. Big back, big back.
Yeah, so it's taking the song from Dora the Explorer and it's using it to basically make a parody song about fat people. The phrase big back, I think, was being used colloquially before the song as a derogatory term for fat people, but then the song came out and it's just exploded. Like, children right now just start singing this song and mocking their classmates.
That's awful. Yeah, I remember, like, right around middle to end of last year when I was still on TikTok, I would every once in a while get these, like, I mean, I would never get them like on my feed naturally. It would always be like people stitching them because my For You page was woke. It was very woke. There was like one girl who like constantly was making content where she was like, I'm really scared of becoming a big back. And I was like, fuck off. Like, it's like the same brand of like lifting girl who like also is scared of bulking up too much. And just this like absolute like irrevocable fear of like being large in any way that is, I mean, you know, you and I were both on Pro Anna Tumblr, so it's just the same thing repackaged in a different way, but it's like now they have songs, now they have music.
Yeah, well, and this is why I think of like fat suits, and when fat people express discomfort about fat suits, the reaction is usually, it's just a joke. It's just a joke, dude. Like, take it easy. Don't take it so seriously. It's just a joke. And then I sit in a room with children who are quite literally in 3rd grade and honestly meeting very concerning warning signs for eating disorder development, telling me that, like, they're very upset because their classmates or siblings are calling them a big back and singing these songs at them. And, like, I have feelings in general about children's internet usage, but this is like one of those things that actually makes me be like, no, actually, maybe no one should just have internet until they can drive a car, because it is so fucked up.
Yeah,
in every way.
It's really, I think it's interesting too, because I've been thinking about a lot, like, we're both at the age where like a lot of our female friends' bodies are just changing, because women's bodies tend to change pretty dramatically in their 20s and 30s. And I've had several friends have the experience recently where they've been dating someone for a long time, and then they, you know, gain a bunch of weight in their mid to late 20s and have their boyfriends be like, oh, I'm just dealing with still being attracted to you. And I'm like, I hate you. All of these are partners who I didn't like in the first place because they gave this vibe. But, like, it's really been, you know, like, it can seem like it's not a big deal on its surface for kids to be singing a big back song, but then it creates a 28-year-old man who is going to break up with his girlfriend because she gained weight.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I've been with my husband for, 7 or 8 years now, and both of our bodies have changed a lot in almost a decade, shockingly, and I have found him attractive at thinner weights, at heavier weights. I don't know. I think that my love just runs deep, and I find him attractive. I don't know. I just love him. I love him no matter what he looks like. And in a loving, healthy relationship, I feel confident that he loves me in that same way.
But I think this all goes back to the thing that we sort of started talking about in the Funny Fat Men series, and I think is even more prominent here, which is that, like, there's just not until, like, pretty semi-recently, there weren't really any positive depictions of fat people in media. And this, like, the Funny Fat Men was, like, how do fat people navigate that? As like to how to exist in the comedy space when like fat bodies are always ridiculed. Whereas this series, I think, I don't know, I haven't read Aubrey's outline, but I think that this series is going to get it more like how do thin people use fatness when they shouldn't.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes, I'm so smart and good and perfect.
I have a couple more points I want to make before I get into the history. The first one is we will, in part 3, talk about the whale and the controversy surrounding the whale. But a big point that I always heard in that debate was like, well, where are you going to get a 600-pound actor to be in this movie? Like, there are times where you need a fat suit because you can't reasonably cast someone who's as large as we need for this specific movie. I just want to say, like, I'm of the belief that I'm of the belief that there are such specific instances where a fat suit is actually necessary that when I actually say it out loud, it describes no movie that I can actually think of. And so the only movie that I can think of that would require a thin actor to wear a fat suit is in a movie where a character starts out as fat and the plot of the movie involves that character losing a substantial amount of weight. Then I'm like, okay, sure. I think a thin person in a fat suit, sure, why not, I guess.
How do you feel about the inverse if it's a movie about someone who starts thin and ends large?
I mean, I get, but that's the thing. It's like, name that movie. like that's where I was like driving myself crazy because I was trying to make a case for fat suits and I couldn't. I'm also like of this belief that if you're going to have a fat suit and you can't find an actor who's fat enough to fit the need of the plot, like maybe with the whale, that you should have an actor who's already fat to begin with in that role. Because fat actors exist, like, I'm not going to sit here and claim that there's no such thing as a 600-pound actor. I could understand how that could be a difficult person to cast. However, there are fat actors that already exist that, can be casted in roles. I mean, that's like my best faith reading of a fat suit, but I think most productions that have used them are not thoughtful at all or even really thinking about actors in that way or fat bodies in that way. It's just haha, fat, funny, whatever. So getting back into this idea of like actors being able to take off the fat suit and how I can't take off my body, it was brought to my attention that Tyra Banks had an insane episode of her talk show where she put on a fat suit and she went to the mall, rode a bike, and she went on 3 blind dates. Mackenna, do you remember in the 2000s? Like, I feel like there was always this trend of like, I'm a white woman, and I wore a hijab for a day and walked around, and I found out what Islamophobia is like. Like, there was a lot of, like, people who are not of certain identities, like, trying to be like, I spent a day in their shoes, and I realized that it's bad to be mean to people.
Yeah, this very performative empathy, because it's like, yeah, I know that from just existing. I know that from talking to people who aren't fat or people of color or trans. Like, I know that from, like, having conversations with other human beings. I don't need to, like, that'd be like me being like, I already use she, they pronouns, but I wanted to figure out what it was like to be a trans man for a day. It's like, no, I don't know that because it's not my lived experience, but I can have empathy for trans men because I've spoken to one in my real life and I believe their experience and they tell me what their experiences were.
Yeah. So I have some quotes from the Tyra Banks episode. So Tyra says, "The people that were laughing and staring in my face, that was what shocked me the most. As soon as I entered the store when I went shopping, I immediately heard snickers. Immediately. I was just appalled and hurt." Like, to me, this just reinforces this idea that, like, if you are fat, you are a social pariah and everyone hates you. And it's just like, Tyra Banks really thought that she was cooking, but it's like, as a fat person watching this, it's like, oh wow, yeah, you put on a fat suit and then everyone fucking treated you shitty. To me, it reinforces this idea that, like, if you are fat, you cannot experience happiness.
Aubrey, to do exactly what I just said, I was going to do. Have you ever had that experience where you've like walked into a store and just had people laugh?
I have not had people like laugh at me when I walk into a store. I've had experiences where, you know, I go to a store that I like, that I know has a plus size range, and I ask, like, do you carry plus sizes in store? And the store associate like scoffs at me. That happened to me at Aerie. That's why I fucking hate shopping at Aerie now, because I really enjoyed my little panties and thongs that I was buying from them. Yeah. And then I went to the Chandler Mall, and the sales associate was a fucking bitch to me because I asked if there were plus sizes. Which is crazy because Aerie's whole fucking thing is like, love your body. We have motivational stickers on our mirrors. Fuck you, Aerie.
I think they've come under a lot of scrutiny for, like, specifically like in their swimwear line, they'll often use fat and plus sized models, but then they don't sell those sizes in store.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too that, like, I feel like so much of that like fake empathy porn content was about like people, strangers doing completely unprompted aggression, like pointing and laughing like this is a cartoon.
Yeah.
When it feels like more of the experience is like that, where it's like interpersonal, and it's like, that's where the fat phobia, that's where the bias comes out, is actually in those interactions. I don't know, but I think in general, this like, then they pointed and laughed at me. It's like, really?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll admit too. I'm gonna send you the picture of Tyra Banks's
Did
fat
she just look crazy? That's what I'm assuming.
I mean, she looked a little silly. I mean, I do believe that there are very fat people who get unprompted aggression thrown at them, especially if they're as large as Tyra Banks was, you know, mimicking in this episode.
It's more than it just feels like her head doesn't fit on her body.
Yeah, like the proportions of it are a little bit weird. So there's a scene later where Tyra Banks goes on these blind dates, and she asks her date, you know, what would your parents think if you brought me home? And he's like, they'll be like, what's wrong with you? And then she reveals her identity to the date, and he's like, holy fuck, it's Tyra Banks. And then he still admitted that when he thought she was a 350-pound woman, that he would not have gone out with her again.
Who is the actor who's been married to the same woman since like the 90s? Oh my god, Aubrey, you're gonna have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm like,
no, I know exactly who you're talking about. I want to say,
and she gained a bunch of weight.
It's not Hugh Grant. It
might be Hugh Grant.
But it's like, I don't think it's Hugh Grant. I think it could be, maybe it could, I want to say it could be like not Sean Connery, but it's like, it's an English actor. I want to say it's a Bond. No, it's a Bond actor, I want to say. No, this is going to kill me. I do know exactly who you're talking about.
Sure.
Is it Pierce Brosnan?
It might be Pierce Brosnan.
And his wife
Yes, it is. It's Pierce Brosnan.
Beautiful.
It's his wife,
yeah.
Keely Shea Smith, is someone who, I think she was a actress when they met. And then she has like since gained weight in the way that like many women gain weight in their like 30s. And people are like, and he's still married to her. And it's like, yeah, you fucks.
Yeah, and like, she's beautiful.
Yeah.
She's just like beautiful. Like and then people are like, oh my god, like people are fucking aghast whenever a man is dating a woman who they think is undesirable. Like anytime you see content online where there is like a thin man and a fat woman, the comments are always just atrocious because they're like, he's actually gay, he hates you and thinks you're ugly actually. And it's like, you know, But then people also degrade it to fetishism, where it's like, he's only with you because his fetish is fat women. And that's also gross.
That's just like a whole different bag of beans of like, when you are not a thin white cis person, anyone's attraction to you must be fetishistic and not genuine.
Yeah. Tyra Banks, she has a quote where she talks about, like, fat men, and she's like, I think people are way less judgmental about chunky guys. I have friends that love it. They're like, ooh, I love a tire. I love a thick man. I love a big man, you know? And when women are just, we're so much broader in our scheme of what's attractive, I like them all. A while ago, I said that, you know, I like a guy, he doesn't have to be all rich and famous, he can be normal. And I remember I was walking in the mall and this guy was like, Tyra, I'm normal. I live with my mama, I ain't got a car, and I ain't got a job. I'm real normal. And I'm like, that's not normal. That's a loser. And that's her little funny monologue she gives about that.
And then TLC popped up behind her and they just started singing No Scrubs and everyone clapped.
I told Josh about this Tyra Banks clip, and he told me about a show called Average Joe that did a really similar thing. Average Joe was a series that existed in the 2000s where instead of attempting to make a dream couple between two extremely attractive people, like on The Bachelor, Average Joe tried to get 18 ordinary men to win the heart of a beauty queen. The men were men that the producers considered to be average in appearance, with many being fat, or nerdy, or lanky, or just awkward in their behavior and personalities. Prior to the start of the show, the beauty queen was not aware that she would be dating average men, and she was led to believe that her show was going to feature handsome suitors. Halfway through the show, several handsome suitors appear and compete against the average Joes. Plot twist, in every season, she ends up with one of the handsome suitors. But basically, in the second season, the woman who's the beauty queen, she wears a fat suit and pretends to be her cousin to see how men treat a woman they aren't attracted to, and shocker, some of them are assholes.
I don't really remember that show so much. I don't think I ever saw it, but it, you know, the other show that's like a very similar premise to that I think we will talk about at some point, because I definitely have it written down on the spreadsheet, is Beauty and the Geek, which was the same thing, where it was like extremely hot women and like nerdy dudes. And I think that like there is a thing, to Tyra's point, where like a less attractive man dating a hot woman is always viewed as like this aspirational thing. We had comments like that effect on like a TikTok that we made about Lola Bunny that was like, men need something to aspire to. Like if a regular guy like Bugs, don't misgender Bugs Bunny, by the way. If a regular guy like Bugs can date someone like Lola Bunny that's like aspirational to other guys. And I do think there's this thing of like, very heavy air quotes here, less desirable men dating more desirable women is viewed as aspirational, whereas like you were just pointing to, when it's a less desirable woman and a really desirable man, it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with that guy? And I do think that that leads to like higher standards for women when it comes to like what a hot woman makes.
Yeah. Also, I know that when I was talking about Average Joe, I described the new incoming suitors as like handsome suitors. The guys on Average Joe were still just like regular dudes. Like these random producers who were probably in their 20s got a bunch of male models versus guys who they just picked up off the street. Like, don't let them hold you down.
Famously,
kings.
Aubrey thinks everyone is hot besides Channing Tatum.
I do. So when I started to look into the history of fat suits, I really struggled to find a singular origin of the fat suit. And I guess I want to define specifically what I mean when I'm talking about a fat suit, because there is a historical trend of people portraying fat characters by just like stuffing a pillow under their shirt, right? But I'm talking about like the specific trope of someone wearing a suit to appear fat or fatter than they are, to portray a character in a way that is typically, but not always, comedic, in a way that is meant to be somewhat realistic. So this is where I'm drawing a distinction between like characters who are just wearing like a big padded suit versus an actual like suit that is meant to emulate a fat body in a somewhat realistic way. So we talked about this a little bit in the Roscoe Arbuckle episode. You know, there was this trend of like funny fat men in media with people like Roscoe Arbuckle, or comedy groups like Laurel and Hardy who did the fat guy, skinny guy thing. But those are actual fat guys. Orson Welles wore what I might consider a fat suit in the movie A Touch of Evil in 1958. Orson Welles was already fat, and he had a custom-made fat suit and makeup applied to look larger. Makeup artist Maurice Siderman taped plastic bags under his eyes and stuffed his oversized suit with more than 60 pounds of padding. Again, this is not really like a fat suit to me as I'm trying to define it, because it is just like padding under clothes. It's also not a comedy, it's a dramatic film, and his weight gain in the movie is meant to show corruption and moral decay.
I was gonna ask if the fatness had any corollary to evilness, and it seems like it perhaps does.
It does. The fat was evil growing on his body.
I see. I feel like we see that, like, that's in Dune with the Harkonnens. Like, that's like a thing with Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah, I think it's also like people misunderstanding the idea of what gluttony is. Like, yeah. I see a lot of portrayals of gluttony where people are like, it's just somebody who's eating a lot, when the actual like biblical definition of gluttony has to do with basically like hoarding resources when other people are in need. So, not a fat person, but whatever. Carol Burnett wore a fat suit for characters in sketches on her show, which is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. But again, like, these are like kind of like goofy looking fat suits, yeah. Right? Like, it's like not meant to be a character here. Like, oh, like that is a fat person. And I genuinely think that what is the case is just that makeup artistry wasn't advanced enough yet to be able to make a convincing fat suit. So people just had like goofy padding under clothes, or they just had fat people make those jokes. So this is why I think the first real example of what I'm defining as a fat suit is probably the Nutty Professor movie from 1996.
Wow, that's really recent. I mean, 30 years, but like that's really recent.
Yeah, like basically after the Nutty Professor in 1996, we see tons of portrayals throughout the 90s and 2000s with similarly styled makeup and prosthetics. So it's like basically the same kind of forms with Shallow Hal, Fat Bastard in Austin Powers, Big Mama's House. Like, this is all, I think, using a lot of the technology that was developed while the production of the Nutty Professor was happening. I do want to give a special shout out though to the movie Death Becomes Her, because Goldie Hawn does wear a fat suit for a little bit of Death Becomes Her in 1992. That's really like a very brief part of the movie though, and again it's more of like a padded suit, but her face, neck, and arms were actually covered in foam to kind of plump up those exposed areas, and then they use this gel-based material called Flabbercast to try to create jiggly rolls under her clothes. That's really similar technology to what they do in the Nutty Professor. I just think that the Nutty Professor really perfected that kind of technique. Yeah. But Death Becomes Her was probably the precursor to that. Her is
tricky because like I'm thinking to that moment, and you know, it is, the fat suit is to represent like a weight gain after Bruce Willis, I think, breaks up with her, maybe divorces her, and then she does then lose that weight and become hot again, and then he wants her again. I'm putting big air quotes again around all of these, but so it's interesting. I do think that like that one's like it Death Becomes Her is a fascinating movie that I do ultimately enjoy.
I do too. To Goldie Hawn's credit, when she's been asked about like how did you feel wearing the fat suit, Goldie Hawn thought that she was pretty when she was wearing the fat suit. And I like that because that character is not meant to be pretty in that moment. And I think Goldie Hawn was being very nice when she said that. She's a real one.
That's what we learned. She should have been at Roscoe Arbuckle's wedding.
Facts. I am curious. So I watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and that's how I know what's happening in musical theater, because I don't listen to any of my friends who live in New York and are connected to theater. And I know that there was a Death Becomes Her musical that came out, and I'm curious if they use the fat suit in that. because that just feels like such a dated joke.
I don't know because I haven't seen it.
All right. So that's basically my argument, is I feel like The Nutty Professor in 1996 is the first real fat suit, because that is a movie where a central portion of the story is about portraying a fat character portrayed by a thin person who is wearing a fat suit. That's my argument. That's what I'm sticking to. If you disagree, shoot me an email. So, The Nutty Professor is a 1996 sci-fi comedy starring Eddie Murphy. It's a remake of the 1963 movie of the same name that starred Jerry Lewis. Fun fact, the 1963 movie was shot at my alma mater, Arizona State University.
You gotta say that again. Alma mater.
What?
What's
Alma
wrong?
Mater? Alma Mater? I don't know.
You, the one who works in academia and is saying alma mater?
Alma Mater? You know what other academia word I don't know, so I just never say it, is it's the name of, like, the person who represents students at the school. It's like the Ombudsman? Ombudsman person? Ombuds person. I don't know how to say it, so I just don't say it.
It's a very silly word. It's like a more complicated version of comptroller.
I'm not even touching that one. So the 1963 version of The Nutty Professor was shot at my alma mater, Arizona State University, which, once again, actually I've never said this on the podcast, but this is something I feel like I say every day of my life. Arizona has no cultural pride. Arizona has no respect for the movies that have been shot there. Like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was shot in Arizona. We don't even have a plaque. We need a plaque. We need something. Arizona has no respect for any of the films that have been shot there. Meanwhile, Louisville, Kentucky, everywhere you turn here, you see Muhammad Ali. Everywhere you turn here, you see Jack Harlow. We put on for our people, and I can respect that. The basic plot of The Nutty Professor is that it's essentially a parody of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The basic premise is very much like when Steve Urkel turns into Stefan in Family Matters. Guy is a nerd. He drinks a potion that gives him this, like, skinny, cool guy alter ego, and hilarity ensues. So basically, Eddie Murphy portrays a university professor named Sherman Klump, who's a brainy and kind-hearted man who weighs 400 pounds. A research scientist, academic, and lecturer, Klump develops a miraculous but experimental weight loss drug, and hoping to win the affection of the girl of his dreams, he tested on himself. His alter ego, Buddy Love, emerges and is a vigorous, charismatic, and evil figure. And basically, throughout the movie, there's a push and pull where they're fighting each other, and in the end, Sherman wins, and he dances with his crush, who's played by Jada Pinkett Smith. Murphy plays 7 characters in the film, including all of Sherman's family, who are all in fat suits and yucking it up together. This is a big selling point that people think is fucking hilarious, so that's why the sequel of The Nutty Professor is about Sherman's family. And yeah, it's basically Medea. It's basically the same as the Big Mama's House sequel. They're all the same movie.
Fully dissociated the second that you said Klump is the character's last name. The second that was said, I was like, and with that, I'm out.
This movie has an Oscar.
For what?
It won Best Makeup at the 69th Academy Awards.
Yeah, things that'll win you the Best Makeup Oscar include fat suits and prosthetic noses. They love to give it to him.
Yeah. So the makeup artist for The Nutty Professor was makeup artist Rick Baker, who is prolific. If you know anything about makeup artistry, he is the guy. Like, he's kind of like a god in the makeup world. People just fuck heavy with Rick Baker. He basically has made, like, every cool monster you can think of. He is really innovative in the field. Yeah, he did An American Werewolf in London. That's probably the one that people recognize his work from the most. But he is heavily respected in makeup artistry.
Yeah. I'm trying to see what he's done more recently. Okay, like he's in his 70s, sort of toned it down. But he did Maleficent, he did Tron Legacy, he did The Wolfman, he did Tropic Thunder, where he is specifically credited for makeup designer for Mr. Downey Jr. Wonder what he was doing for that movie. He did Norbit, he did X-Men The Last Stand. Yeah. Hellboy, the Hellboy makeup's cool. That's like
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
A movie that I don't dislike, but I don't like as much as other people.
Oh, I like it. That one's a fun one for me at Christmas time.
I used to have nightmares about the Grinch as a child, so I have a hard time looking at him.
So basically the fat suit that Rick Baker made for the Nutty Professor is kind of insanely good in the sense that it is so innovative and really does look, I mean, it's a way of creating something that looks like a fat body in a way that I don't think had ever been done before. The suits that were made for the Nutty Professor were made from a urethane foam and a spandex suit, and he would fill the pockets of the suit with liquid to make it jiggle believably with movement the way real fat on a body moves, right? Like if you just stick a pillow under your shirt and jump around, the pillow is going to stay a pillow. Whereas if you have actual fat on the body, it's going to move in a different type of way. It would take 3 hours to apply all of the makeup and the fat suit every day. Neither Rick Baker nor Eddie Murphy have really talked that much about the Nutty Professor in terms of like portrayals of fat people or like their feelings about that. Really, the only stuff that I saw from Rick Baker about it was just complimenting Eddie Murphy as an actor because he spent many days in the makeup chair and Eddie Murphy never complained. Eddie Murphy was quite passionate about the project, blah, blah, blah. I mean, truthfully, I don't think Eddie Murphy is like a bad person for like making this movie. I haven't watched it. I decided not to rewatch it before I did this episode. I will say I liked it a lot when I was a kid, and as a little fat child, I was particularly sensitive to negative portrayals of fat people, and this one didn't stay in my mind palace as something that made me feel really bad. So that's what I have to say about this.
I really don't think we started like thinking about in any sort of like, you know, broader cultural conversation. I think obviously like fat people and fat activists have been talking about this for a long time, but like I feel like it was like early mid 2010s when we started talking about like, hey, you know, so fat people are real people, and everyone was like, oh yeah, forgot about that. And so I do think that like they probably just genuinely weren't like this notion of like, could this be harmful to fat people if they see it, probably didn't even enter their brains.
Well, and why would you even care? Because being fat is something you should want to change as soon as you realize that you are.
Yeah, and that's why your doctor wants you to go on Ozempic.
Yeah. So basically after the Nutty Professor, like pretty much every year after that, there is like a movie or TV show that features a fat suit somewhat prominently. What I'm really interested in as we go through the rest of the history today is basically just pulling out examples of these fat suits and talking about them, because in pretty much every example, I think they're used to create caricatures of fat people. They typically involve a character who is normally thin, but being presented as fat for comedic effect. So the first one I want to talk about is gonna go over to Mackenna with some of Mackenna's homework, because I hate the show Friends. So I'm gonna make Mackenna tell me a little bit about Fat Monica.
Oh, okay. Okay. What do you want to know?
I have some facts about Fat Monica, but I guess I'm hoping you can give us an overview of like who is Monica in Friends, and what is Fat Monica?
So Friends is an American TV show that took place in the 90s and early 2000s about a group of friends in their late 20s, early 30s who live in Greenwich Village in New York City. Would you believe it if that was all improv and I didn't have that written down? Because that's true. Monica is one of those six. She is living in the apartment where like the show really sort of focuses around. People often are like, she could never afford to live in an apartment that big. It's established so early in the show that it's a rent-controlled apartment that was her grandmother's, and that's why the rent is so inexpensive. I understand if you don't live in New York that sentence maybe makes no sense, but like it actually does make sense that they're able to live in that apartment. That's a digression. That's me being annoyed. Monica is the sister of Ross, who's one of the other 6 on the show. And her childhood, the first episode of Friends is her childhood friend Rachel re-enters her life when she leaves her husband, or her husband to be at the altar. So that's like where things are at the beginning of Friends, the TV show. And then like the 9 seasons of the show are about their like lives living in New York. She is skinny. She's played by Courtney Cox. She's very skinny, very pretty, blah, 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 blah. What you find out in an episode where we see the past is that Monica was once fat when she was in high school and then lost a bunch of weight. And so that's sort of what Fat Monica is we usually see Fat Monica in the context of like flashbacks to when they were in high school. Specifically, there's a prom episode, and then there's an episode where Ross brings his college roommate Chandler, who is another one of the 6 main characters on the show, played by Matthew Perry, back to his family home on Long Island for Thanksgiving. And then the sort of, there's one more where they go out dancing and it's Fat Monica. That episode's called like the one with the stripper. And in that episode, you find out that Monica and Ross kissed once when they thought, so the whole plot, okay, sorry, I wasn't gonna bring up the weird incest that's in like one of the last 5 episodes of Friends. But it's this episode, I think it's called like not the one with the stripper. Maybe it is the one with the stripper. But basically you find out that this night where they all go out dancing, and Ross kisses a girl who Chandler was interested in. And so in revenge, Chandler makes out with Rachel, who Ross has a crush on at the time. And Ross is like, what do you mean? I kissed Rachel for the first time that night. And Rachel's like, no, you didn't. And Monica has always believed that she kissed Chandler for the first time that night. And it gets revealed that Ross and Monica kissed each other thinking that they were kissing Rachel or Chandler.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that, and I'm uncomfy now.
Hey, we love to put comedic incest in shows.
So I don't like Friends. I have a challenge with myself whenever Friends is on, is like, I'm gonna watch it until I cringe, and I've never lasted more than like a minute. And anyway, Seinfeld supremacy. I was raised on Seinfeld. I think that if I was a fat child with an eating disorder who had watched Fat Monica, I would have just had an eating disorder even harder.
There's one other context in which Fat Monica comes up. There's 2 episodes that are like alternate universe, like what things are, because like sitcoms love an alternate timeline version, and in this alternate timeline version, Monica like never lost the weight, and so it's the one time we see Fat Monica as an adult and not as a teenager.
And is she sad and miserable?
So it's interesting. What the plot of the alternate timeline for Monica is she is, I don't know how old they're supposed to be at this point, but let's just say late 20s. And she is supposed to lose her virginity to her boyfriend that night. So she's never had sex, which is like, so they are playing on like the fat, sad trope a little bit, that she's like never had sex. Like, so she's more undesirable than like she is as skinny Monica, But like, it's kind of a sweet, okay, I'm gonna put it sweet and evil as I describe this. So basically, like, the guy cancels on her because his spleen ruptures, and her and Chandler have like dinner together, like as friends, because they're friends in this alternate timeline. And she's like, I just feel like I'm never gonna lose my virginity. And he's like they're like talking about sex, and she was like, well, would you have sex with me? And he immediately goes, yep.
Aww.
And so they like, then there's like a little bit of like a back and forth about like, oh, should we not? They end up having sex. It's like great for both of them. And then what gets revealed is that Chandler, her boyfriend, didn't have a ruptured spleen. Chandler canceled the date because he is in love with Monica and was jealous.
Aww.
Which like gets into a little bit of like a weird coercion place, but he also didn't know that she was gonna like ask to have sex with him. So it's not totally evil, but it's sort of like a little icky. But it is like, there is something in this episode of like him like being attracted to her. And so it's interesting that like all of the Fat Monica in the past is always played as like fat, ugly, gross, like there's like literally it's the first time her and Chandler meet and he like pokes fun at her weight and that's like why she loses weight.
Yeah.
It's like canonically she loses weight because Chandler calls her fat. They end up married in the show. And what's nice about this alternate reality version is that like he is still attracted to her in this. It's nice. It's like in this universe where she is fat, they still end up together.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the only time on the show where fat Monica is treated with like a level of sensitivity. Obviously, there's still she wouldn't have lost her virginity if she was fat. But like, there is something sweet about like in all universes, Chandler does still love her, and it's not just because she got skinny. It's like he would have loved her regardless.
Yeah, that's really sweet. I am a bit of a sucker for the I would find you in every universe type of plot, and that's really sweet. I have never watched an episode that involves Fat Monica. People have big feelings about Fat Monica. I think it's interesting that Fat Monica is canonically shown in 4 episodes, but she is referenced in half of the episodes of Friends.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so just like references to either like when Monica was fat or saying Fat Monica or just like making some kind of reference. So like Monica's character is, even as a thin woman, it's like constantly being brought up that she used to be fat. And that I think is interesting. I think that what frustrates me a little bit with the Fat Monica character is I think that having this character who seems like is a very type A, like sort of neurotic personality, this idea that she was fat as a teen or young adult makes a lot of sense with that character, and I think could genuinely be quite compelling, which is something I'm going to state about a lot of other pieces of media today, if it wasn't just like, haha, she was fat and that's what's funny. Like, there's potential for actual compelling storytelling.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, the other thing that happens in all of the flashback episodes is also, like, it's never explicitly stated in the show that Rachel is Jewish, but she calls her grandma Bubby in one episode and she lives on Long Island and, like, was marrying a Jewish doctor. There's lots of indications that Rachel is probably Jewish, including that also the other thing that's different in all of the flashback episodes is that Rachel, played by Jennifer Aniston, has a big ol' honker that she then, got nose surgery on. And so it's like both in those, in addition to like Fat Monica being mostly played for laughs in these episodes, there's also some like light anti-Semitism going on with Rachel's nose. And so it's just like both of the ways that their characters are portrayed as young people, I think goes a little bit beyond awkward teen girl stuff into like, let's laugh at their big body and their big nose. And I do think that like the way that the show most sensitively portrays any of this like non-Anglo-Saxon white beauty standard as anything other than a joke is the alternate version of Fat Monica, because Rachel's big nose and Fat Monica is always just like, ha ha ha, they were fat and had a big nose.
Yeah, and that's no good. That's just really sad.
What I will say, a nice thing is that like in the prom episode, Monica does have a date for the prom. It's not played like she doesn't. Her date is like upset when it seems like Rachel's date isn't going to show up, and when Rachel's date isn't going to show up, Monica's like, well, I don't want to go if Rachel's not going. And so the nice thing is it's not totally portrayed that like Monica had no friends. Like she's not like a total like loser. There is a little bit of like the pushing back against, like she does have friends. She's friends with like a very popular girl. She goes to prom and has a date, and like that stuff is nice. It is though, like there's so many jokes in like the Thanksgiving episode about Monica being fat in a way that's just like, okay, I get it. I understand she used to be fat. I hear ya.
Yeah, it's like these little nuggets where it tries to show a little bit of sentiment, but the majority of it is just constant shitting and punching down.
Yeah, also because there are no fat characters on the show who are portrayed in a positive light. Yeah. The like genuine only time we like really see a fat person is Courtney Cox in a fat suit, and it is, besides in the alternate universe version, it is portrayed as like this shame that she has left behind.
I gotta see how fat Monica even is. I'm straight up gonna be fatter than Fat Monica, aren't I? Yeah, I straight up am fatter than Fat Monica. All right, guys, I'm killing myself.
No,
this is the last you'll ever hear from me.
Do you know about Fat Joey?
No. Oh my god, we've got a second plane has hit Friends Towers.
That's tough considering that the show takes place in early 2000s New York.
Where were they? Where were they when the towers fell?
After I said all those nice things about the alternate universe episode, at the end of the alternate universe episode, Phoebe's like, it still would be fun to imagine a world in which Monica and Joey ended up together. Joey's he's the third guy in the group of 6.
Yeah.
And he's like the hot one. Like, Joey is the hot one of the guys. And in this alternate universe where Monica and Joey end up together, Monica is a chef. And so we get Fat Joey, who is enormous.
Sad.
Like, comic. I actually
I see it. I see.
You see Fat Joey?
Yeah, they just made him look ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous in the sense that they were like, we are going to make this character wear a fat suit that looks extreme in order to elicit an even bigger response, because if Fat Monica being this fat was funny, it's gonna be even funnier if Joey is fatter.
And there's, like, a whole bit where, like, he sits down at the table to, like, eat this, like, genuinely absurd amount of food that's all fried. And it's, like, fried and covered in cheese. Like, that's, like, the joke, I guess, if you can call it a joke. And, like, then Monica has to, like, use her whole body weight to, like, push the chair in. And I'm like, it sucks so bad because they spend the whole rest of the episode, like, actually really sensitively portraying Monica and her fat body for the first time, and then they literally ended on this joke.
Boys, if you're listening, if you got the Fat Joey build, you still cute. You cute as fuck, and I love you still. And girlies who got the Fat Monica build, you're thinner than me, so shut the fuck up. This is blowing my mind. Fat Monica looks like she's a fucking size 14.
I mean, she's not huge.
This shit is killing. Like, Mackenna, like, look at this shit. This is... Hold on a second, everyone. Like, like, what is this? This is a screenshot from Friends with Fat Monica, and she just looks thin. It's fucking me up.
I do. That's from the alternate universe episode, and I do think they make her thinner in the alternate universe episode than in when she's like actual Fat Monica in the past.
Mid-size Monica.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's really the Courtney Cox is all of the women on the show are so thin.
Yeah.
That, like, Fat Monica is comparatively fat to Courtney Cox's actual body. But, like, I would agree that she is what the actual term mid-size means. She probably, like, Fat Monica would be, like, probably a 14 or 16.
Yeah.
But it's also, this is the early 2000s, late 90s. We'll remember that Jessica Simpson, who was, like, a little bit bigger than I am now, was, like, the fattest person anyone could imagine for a while.
I know. I remember when I was a kid seeing the picture that everyone uses as wasn't Jessica Simpson so fat picture. And I remember as a kid, I thought, oh my God, she looks so fat. And I look at that picture now and it's like, oh, no, she wasn't at all.
No, it's like it's basically, like, I would say at my heaviest weight, that's what I look like, and I'm about, like, a few pounds from my heaviest weight. So it's like, I basically look like what fat Jessica Simpson looked like, and it's like, I'm a skinny person.
Yeah.
So we were just being mean in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s were mean. As we're going to continue to unpack. So, in 2000, we have the release of Big Mama's House, starring Martin Lawrence. The film stars Martin Lawrence as an FBI agent who's tasked with tracking down an escaped convict and his loot by going undercover as the estranged grandmother of his former girlfriend, unaware of the bond that he will form with her. So he pretends to be his ex-girlfriend's fat grandmother, and then it's the typical, I'm in disguise, but I'm connecting with you in this way. Oscar-winning makeup artist Greg Canham developed a method of hand sculpting silicone prosthesis that could be worn much longer than the gel and foam types that preceded them. Big Mama had a huge suit that was made of breathable fabric that Martin Lawrence could wear as long as 14 hours a day. Again, like, this is a really big deal in makeup, artistry, prosthetic kind of design. Martin Lawrence, I couldn't really find a hint of self-reflection when it came to the portrayal of Big Momma. What I've got is a quote about his co-star Nia Long, and he said, "It was hard looking at Nia Long while I was in the fat suit, though. I'm thinking, goodness, you fine, and I'm in this fat face and all that."
Yeah, I mean, again, this movie came out in 2000. Fat people didn't exist and weren't real until, 2010.
Yeah. So I was reading this Vulture article about fat suits, and part of the article was they had a weight estimator estimate the weight of all of these characters in different fat suits.
Well, thank God.
Because we need that, right?
Hard-hitting, breaking journalism right there, ladies and gentlemen.
So, Mackenna, I'm going to send you a picture from Big Mama's house, too. And I'm going to tell you that they estimate the weight of this character to be about 10 pounds more than I currently weigh. So I want Mackenna, who has seen me in a swimsuit, to tell me if this looks like this is me 10 pounds from now. Is this me if I gain 10 pounds?
No.
Yeah. I'm just illustrating this point because every time I was reading these like weight estimations, honestly, in any of these movies, they are so inaccurate to estimating how much people actually weigh. So to be clear, guys, I weigh probably like 270 pounds. I don't know. I don't look like a lot of these portrayals that people are like, she weighs 200 pounds, and then they're wearing this enormous fat suit. I don't know. It's like how movies are obsessed with whenever they give a thin woman's weight, it's always like 130 pounds. Like that's like the default weight for women.
What is it in Bridget Jones' Diary? Isn't it like 135 or something like that?
Literally.
Yeah.
Like I literally think, yeah, a lot of writers think the cutoff for women is women have to be like 130 or 140 pounds.
Well, that's the thing too, is it's like, as we all know, men have no idea how much women weigh. They have no idea because you see so many things on the internet of like, no woman should ever weigh more than 120 pounds. And then they're like clearly attracted to women who weigh much more than that. But it's because they genuinely think that a 120 pound person looks like what a 160 pound body is.
Like my brother is a gym guy and he's always like, I can guess people's weights and he probably can for men because he looks at a lot of men's bodies, but anytime I'm like, Dalton, how much do you think I weigh? He's never been able to accurately guess, and he's always off by fucking upwards of 30 pounds.
I don't know that I actually am curious about this, but I would be hypothetically curious to see how much Dalton thinks I weigh.
We'll have my brother on the podcast, and then everyone send in pictures of your body.
No.
All right. So our next wait, hold on. Just say something really quick.
Say something, I'm giving up on you.
Then we have the movie Shallow Hal, which is
we talked about this.
So what I want to say with Shallow Hal is that I feel similarly toward it as I feel about the Amy Schumer movie I Feel Pretty, where I think both are ultimately bad, but I think that Shallow Hal is slightly better. However, I think the concepts of both of those movies are actually solid. Like, I think as concepts, they have legs to stand on, and I would love to see those movies done with actual care and intent, right? Because I think about the root of Shallow Hal is that it's a movie about this man Jack Black, and he gets hypnotized into only being able to see a person's inner beauty. He meets Gwyneth Paltrow, who he sees as incredibly beautiful, but oh my fucking god, she actually weighs 300 pounds! And basically it's a movie about him accepting, like, beauty within, shit like that. Like, I think that a movie about someone who gets a new perspective about appearance and grows emotionally from it genuinely has the potential to be quite powerful. It reminds me of this interview I saw with Dustin Hoffman about his experience filming the movie Tootsie that always just, like, makes me cry and like really like has hit in my soul for some reason. But basically, it's this interview with Dustin Hoffman, and in the movie Tootsie, he's dressed up as a woman to try to, like, make it as an actor, essentially. And in this interview, Dustin Hoffman talks about this experience of putting on the woman makeup for the first time, and he looks in the mirror, and he realizes that he is an ugly woman, and it really shakes his perspective, and he realizes, like, throughout the filming and throughout this process, like, talking to women, he really realizes how many women he has, like, missed out on in his life because he didn't give them the time of day because he didn't find them attractive. And I think that that's actually a somewhat powerful lesson that a lot of people would actually benefit from learning, and if there was a piece of media that was able to help people get to that point, I think that that would be a really powerful piece of media.
Yeah. Like, it sucks that Shallow Hal ends with them being together. Because I feel like maybe she's, I don't know, I haven't seen Shallow Hal. Does she find out that he's been seeing her as, like, a thin woman this whole time? So
I didn't rewatch Shallow Hal for this.
Okay.
I haven't seen it since I was a very young person. I feel like it had probably a similar arc to every rom-com where they're together and then she realizes something and then she's like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And then he gets back together with her.
Okay. I think what's tricky about Shallow Hal is that it has the potential to do exactly what Aubrey was talking about. But even from the poster where it's a silhouette, it's thin Gwyneth Paltrow, but her shadow against the wall is much larger than her body. It actually is. And so much of the movie, of the clips that I watched when we were doing the Funny Fat Men Roundup and we were talking about this movie, were like, he takes her underwear off and they're way bigger than they should be. They're in a canoe together and it's tipping, and that shouldn't happen because they're the same size. The weight should be distributed evenly. It's odd too that Jack Black is the male co-lead of that movie, and so it just is. It misses the mark.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the whole thing with the Amy Schumer movie where it's like, oh, this woman, she hits her head and she suddenly thinks she's had this, like, transformation into someone really beautiful. And it's like, okay, but then all of the jokes are about how she's actually not attractive.
Yeah.
So basically, in the movie, Gwyneth Paltrow had foam latex on her face and neck, padding all around her body. She wore fat pants, a fat shirt, and fat arms that were all made out of pillowy fabrics. I actually think of all the fat suits we're talking about today, I think Gwyneth Paltrow's probably looks the worst because it's really bulky and kind of awkward. When needed, they would also use latex fat gloves. And basically, because this suit was so unrealistic, the directors of the movie brought in a body double for shots of her arms and legs, and that was a woman named Ivy Snitzer. And I'm going to send you a picture of Ivy Snitzer. Genuinely, I think this is a very beautiful woman.
It's just funny because you said that, and then the first thing I saw was Martin Lawrence again. And I was like, that is a very beautiful woman. Oh, yeah, she's super pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I just think she's gorgeous. Unfortunately, she reported that being the body double for this movie was incredibly upsetting for her, and she almost starved herself to death after the film was released because it was just humiliating.
Right, like we've talked a lot about, like, what it is to be, like, a young fat person watching these depictions of fat people. But, like, for her, she, while not, you know, actually playing the part, had to be that, like, really unkind depiction of a fat person. And as you stated, like, Gwyneth Paltrow got to take her body off at the end of the day, whereas this actress's name?
Ivy Snitzer.
Like, and Ivy didn't get to, and she just had to sit with the fact that, like, she was the not hot version of this character that was being portrayed.
Yeah. And let me show you the Gwyneth Paltrow, because now that you've seen how cute Ivy was, look at what Gwyneth Paltrow's character was.
Yeah. Like, they make her look, in addition to being fat, they just make her look schlubby, like she's in a shirt that doesn't fit right and things like that. I think what's tricky is that, I think inherent in the premise, like, it actually just, like, she doesn't need to be fat. She just needs to be unattractive, whatever I keep doing air quotes, which don't read, heavy air quotes, unattractive, because the whole contrast this movie is trying to make is that you're seeing inner beauty, and there's another character in the movie who's like a hot woman, but then when Jack Black sees her after he's had this hypnotherapy, he sees her as really ugly because she does not have inner beauty, she has inner ugliness. And so I think it's tricky because, like, for the whole concept to make sense, she has to be unattractive, and the way that they chose to make Gwyneth Paltrow unattractive was to make her fat.
Mackenna, I'm gonna send you the quote that Gwyneth Paltrow said about her experience in the fat suit. It's only 2 sentences, but I just want you to give me your best Gwyneth Paltrow read of this.
I don't have a good Gwyneth Paltrow, but I'll do this.
Just embrace goop.
Jade egg in my vagina. Jade egg in my vagina. Jade egg in my vagina. Okay. I felt no sexual energy for men. When I come to the set with the suit on and feel none of that, it is palpable.
Palpable. Because Gwyneth Paltrow is used to a palpable sexual energy when she walks into the room because everyone wants to fuck her because she's super hot.
God,
And when she doesn't have that, I mean, that's oppression. That's oppression when she doesn't feel that. Good thing she can take it off at the end of the day, baby.
Being a tall, thin, blonde woman is something I will never be able to access. Because even if I dyed my hair blonde at this point, I still would not have tall, thin, blonde woman energy, you know?
It's something you're born with.
Yeah. You have to live your entire life as a tall, thin, blonde woman to really be a tall, thin, blonde woman. I would just be cosplaying their culture at that point.
The last movie that I want to talk about today, or I guess rather series of movies, is the character of Medea, who premiered with Diary of a Mad Black Woman in 2005, who's portrayed by Tyler Perry. So in that Vulture article I read about the history of fat suits, writer Adam Raymond basically says, if Sherman Klump was the originator, Medea is the perpetrator.
That's good. I like that. And that's what she goes to jail for.
Yeah. So there are 14 Medea movies. One is coming out this year. There's another one in production. There's also a ton of plays, cameos, and other media appearances that this character has been in.
We complain about the MCU. The Tyler Perry / Medea extended universe is a thing that the mind just cannot comprehend.
It's the other MCU, the Medea Cinematic Universe. Mundo. I don't like any MCU.
You know who?
Oh, you know what MCU I do like is the McDonald's Cinematic Universe, because when I was a kid, McDonald's had these VHS tapes that were like actual plotted cartoons with the McDonald's characters. I love that shit.
Yeah, I love, hey, Hamburglar.
Bring him back.
Grimace.
And he was, dude, and Ronald McDonald was hot in that. I'm going to show you. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about right now?
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
But I don't remember what Ronald McDonald looked like in them.
I'm still going to show you.
Okay.
It was like it just looks so like 2000s animation. I'm sure this won't make it into the episode.
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
Aubrey?
Yeah?
I don't like that you said that Ronald McDonald was hot in this.
Oh, I don't know. I thought there was an allure.
Yes, well. You know who really likes Medea Goes to Jail?
Who?
Bryce.
My spidey senses were tingling. So Medea is portrayed as a tough, street-smart, elderly black woman, portrayed by the actor Tyler Perry. So, you know, this is Tyler Perry putting on a fat suit and being this character. She's inspired by Tyler Perry's mother and his aunt. In his own words, Medea is, quote, exactly the PG version of my mother and aunt, and I loved having the opportunity to pay homage to them. She would beat the hell out of you, but make sure the ambulance got there in time to make sure you could set your arm back, because the love was there all inside of it.
Well, it's like, I'm pretty sure the plot of Medea Goes to Jail is that she goes to jail because she has uncontrollable anger problems.
Yeah. So the Medea films and plays are comedies, but they're supposed to contain serious themes that are intended to deliver moral messages about things like infidelity, spousal abuse, and the consequences of one's actions. I'm going to get into kind of why people think Tyler Perry sucks so bad. I'll say that I think Tyler Perry kind of sucks. If you really want to know my opinion of Tyler Perry, just watch watched the episode of Boondocks where they make fun of Tyler Perry, and that's really my opinion of Tyler Perry really comes from that. He's just kind of a clown. He does a lot of caricatures of black people that I think are just frankly offensive. And, guess what? I'm a white woman calling that out. You know what? Sit with it. Sit with it and think about it. Tyler Perry's been accused of minstrelsy and playing into black stereotypes with the Medea character, most notably by fellow black director Spike Lee. Lee has equated the Medea movies with old-time minstrel shows, which lampooned black people as dim-witted, lazy, buffoonish, superstitious, and happy-go-lucky, and further stated that if a white director made a movie depicting black people the way that Tyler Perry does, that person would be ostracized because it would be extremely racist. Perry's response to that is basically saying that his films are meant to be entertainment and shouldn't be taken so seriously. His quote is, "I am sick of him talking about me. I'm sick of him talking about black people going to see movies." This is what he said. "You vote by what you see, as if black people don't know what they want to see. I'm sick of him. He talked about Whoopi. He talked about Oprah. He talked about me. He talked about Clint Eastwood. Spike needs to shut the hell up." So Spike Lee and Tyler Perry do have beef, and I'm going to stand on the side of history that Spike Lee is on probably every time.
I also agree.
Yeah. So some critics believe that the characterization of Medea, in addition to other black women featured in Medea films, works to legitimize harmful and damaging stereotypes. There is concern about these depictions of blackness, as critics believe that they can have a negative impact on how black women see themselves in society, and also how white people who see these movies feel about black people.
Yeah.
In addition, the role of Medea has also received criticism due to the fact that some people view his cross-gender acting as a misappropriation of drag culture. And people have argued that Tyler Perry perpetuates a patriarchal ideology through his characterization of Medea and her interactions with other protagonists. Surprise, it's a man playing the stereotype of the angry black woman, and Tyler Perry's response to that is basically, yeah, this is chill. And other black people have been like, actually, this is not chill at all and seems super harmful. So, yeah, that, I would say that the longest lasting example of the fat suit has been 20 years of Medea movies that are still ongoing.
Yeah. It's tricky. There is something to be said for, there's all these jokes of, there's media that, unless you're black, you don't really engage with and, don't know about. I've seen lots of TikToks that are if you recognize all of these things, you have to be black. The Medea movies are interesting because they've, escaped into popular culture. And I do think that they do have that trickiness of, being not great depictions of black women, and that is bad for black women and also for white people seeing these movies that reinforce a bunch of stereotypes. And I wish that Tyler Perry wasn't in some ways the biggest name in this black media space, in the specifically black media for black people space, because I do think he's a tricky guy.
Yeah, and like I said, my opinions on Tyler Perry are informed by what I have heard black people talk about when it comes to why they think Tyler Perry sucks. And I agree with the points I've heard. So I'm realizing now I didn't even talk about Fat Bastard from Austin Powers. So, Fat Bastard is a character. When I think of characters in media where it actually made me feel bad as a child, Fat Bastard is the one that comes up. My family was a big Austin Powers family, so we watched each of the Austin Powers movies multiple times, and basically Fat Bastard is a character who is a villain in the Austin Powers movies. Austin Powers is sort of a parody of James Bond, played by Mike Myers, the comedian, and Fat Bastard is basically a parody of sort of several Bond villains, and essentially he is a really fat Scottish guy and wants to kill Austin Powers, and his whole thing is he fucking farts a lot, and he's vulgar, and he eats a lot, and everyone's really grossed out by him. There's a point where he wants to eat babies, and he calls them the other white meat. So, I mean, that's objectively hilarious, but for the most part, Fat Bastard just exists as a caricature. Did you watch the Austin Powers movies when you were younger?
I did and I didn't. I remember watching them. I have retained literally nothing from them. I probably watched them when they were like on TV when I was extremely young. So I don't really remember them at all. I have like glimpses of Mike Myers in the costume in the face. I know who Fat Bastard is, but I think that's it, really. Or I remember Dr. Evil. Dr. No?
Dr. Evil.
I remember Dr. Evil. I remember the mini Dr. Evil. But, like, I only vaguely remember who Fat Bastard even is.
Yeah, so he is, I think, only in the second and third movies. But, I mean, basically, he just does the same fucking thing that all these portrayals do, which is portray fat people. Well, actually, I would argue Fat Bastard is probably the worst because his character has zero redeeming qualities. He is purely greedy, obsessed with eating, possibly cannibalistic, and grotesque. He is just a gross, evil character that has zero redeeming qualities about him. And I think that when I was younger, like, I remember thinking, like, this is how people view my fat little body, is that it's stinky and ugly and, like, smells bad, and that makes me sad. Like, I think in the sequel, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, there's a scene where his love interest in that movie, who's played by Heather Graham, has to, like, the movie makes you believe that she has had sex with Fat Bastard to try to, like, get intel or something, and Austin Powers is really hurt by that, but he's also just, like, disgusted because, like, who would fuck Fat Bastard? I mean, that's it. Like, that's why I don't really have that many notes on Fat Bastard, because he's literally just a gross, evil character, and it's just Mike Myers in a big fat suit, and the jokes are basically just that he is gross and eats a lot.
And thank God. We need more fat and eats a lot's representation as characters in media.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this was really the...
I'm joking. This is a joke.
This was really the first time media had ever seen a fat person who was eating a lot.
That's not a historical joke that's been made about fat. It's not the laziest joke possible. I mean, I think about, and I don't know if you have this in the notes for the third time at all, but like, I do really think all the time about that stupid fat suit Ben Stiller is in during Dodgeball at the end when he's just like covered in food.
So I know that Ben Stiller must have been a fat child because the movie Heavyweights could only be written by a fat person.
I don't know what that is.
You've never seen Heavyweights?
Aubrey, have I ever seen a single movie?
Oh my God, Mackenna. Oh my God. So basically, the character he plays in Dodgeball, that's essentially a character that he played in the movie Heavyweights from 1995, which was fucking written by Judd Apatow. It has, like, a cult following because it's basically just, like, a bunch of kids at a fat camp, but holy fuck, does that movie portray the fat child experience better than any piece of media I've ever seen.
Wow, okay.
But, okay, so Judd Apatow helped write it. So Judd Apatow was a fat child. I look at him and I know this. He's got fat man face. I know you were bullied, Judd Apatow, and then you became skinny, but you still got some feelings you haven't worked out. I know this. But, oh my God, we gotta watch Heavy. I don't even know how we're gonna fit that into something.
I don't know either. I mean, there's probably something.
It's on the list! And that's the end of today's episode. This was my overview of fat suits, largely from the 90s and 2000s. The next episode is gonna be a deep dive into the Fat Albert character and the 2003 movie starring Kenan Thompson. And the third episode is going to talk about more modern examples of fat suits and where we've gone since the Nutty Professor and where we're heading now. Bye.
Bye. Have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss? Send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.